Different companies develop different products, different projects and different software, but they are all follow one single process while developing the software. That process is known as software development life cycle process. In simple words, it is SDLC process. The SDLC process mainly comprises of 6 steps. The first one is requirement analysis, second one is designing, third one is development, the fourth one is testing, the fifth one is deploying, and the last step is maintenance. Let us talk about all these steps in detail in this video. Here you can see the steps I have mentioned earlier. Now, talking about the requirement analysis, you can ask me what is requirement. Before I explain you, I want to tell you one more thing. Suppose if you take Flipkart application and you are visiting the application for the first time, what you will do? You will register in the application and log in the application, and if you want to order something, you will order the product. So the registration, the login, logout, ordering, these are all known as features. So the software is a group of features. Every feature will have requirement. What does requirement contain? Requirement will specify how the software should be developed, how the pages should be visible, how the navigation should be done from one page to the another page. Based on that requirement only, the developers will develop the software. There are many types of requirements like business requirement specification, software requirement specification, product requirement, user requirement specification, and user story. Let us talk about them in detail now. Suppose a business company wants to give an order to the software company to develop one software. Generally their language will be in business language. If they directly contact the software people, that language may not be understood by the software people. So what they will do? They will interact with the people like business analyst. So they will specify the scope of the project, they will specify the requirements of the projects, and they will specify the guidelines to the business analyst. Then the business analyst will convert that business language into the software language, and he will prepare one requirement. That requirement is known as business requirement specification. In the business requirement specification mainly talks about the functional requirements of the software, like which features to be there in the software, and the navigation of the features, and links existence of the feature, and the data which should be stored in the database and which should be deleted from the database. Like that, it will be specified in the business requirement specification. Now talking about software requirement specification. In bigger companies, we won't see people like business analyst. So there will be a position named system architect. The system architect will get the requirement from the client, which is CRS, that is customer requirement specification. The customer requirement specification will be of informal language and will be non-technical. So what he will do? He will convert that informal language into the technical language of software, and he will prepare the requirement. This requirement is known as software requirement specification. The SRS document contains both functional and non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements talks about security of the application, performance of the application, and compatibility of the application. Now talking about product requirement. If you take product based company, there won't be any customers or any business people. So how they will get the requirements? there will be a position called product manager. The product manager will identify the features and he will prepare the requirements. So in that requirement, everything like product's purpose, features, functionality of the product and behavior of the product will be clearly specified. Based on that requirement, the development team will proceed further. Now talking about the user requirement specification. Generally the business people will prepare the URS document based on their expectation of the user's point of view. So they will take the end user's point of view and they will prepare the requirement. This requirement is known as user requirement specification. URS document mainly talks about how the software should behave when the user accesses the application. Now talking about user story, it mainly talks about how the user wants to use that application. So these are all the different types of requirements. Let us talk about requirement analysis. In requirement analysis, we have to understand the requirements clearly and correctly, because the analysis will solely depend on the understanding. If you understand the requirement, then only you can analyze the requirement properly. First you have to analyze the stakeholders, that is, who are the people that are being affected by that feature and who are the different end users who are using that feature. So once you analyze the stakeholders and end users, then you have to prioritize the requirements. Which requirement should be developed first and which requirement should be developed next. So once you do this, then you have to clarify any doubts. If you have any doubts, you have to clarify them with the stakeholders like BA and client. And finally you have to take the sign from the BA, then it will become acknowledgement from him. This is the process of requirement analysis. Now let us discuss the requirement analysis process in detail with an example. Suppose Flipkart is my client and his business send me an user story which has the acceptance criteria. Customer should be able to create an account with the following two fields. The first one is mobile number, which is mandatory. Second one is OTP, which is also mandatory. So what we have understand with this one, customer should be able to create the account with two mandatory fields. The first one is mobile number, second one is OTP. This is what we have understand. Now coming to the analyzation part, take the field mobile number. Suppose a customer entered some number. How can we say that he entered the valid number? It should be of 10 digits. So the developer should provide a validation rule. The field should take the value if and only if it has 10 digits. That is the first analysis. Now coming to the second analysis, user entered valid number, then the valid number should enter the Flipkart database temporarily and an OTP will be created temporarily. This is the second analysis. Coming to the third analysis, the user entered the OTP, then he should be able to create his account. Thus the requirement is fulfilled. Now, have you got any doubt here? Think a while. I have got two doubts. Suppose if the user is entering Invalid OTPs. How many attempts you should be allowed to enter the OTP? That is my first doubt. And suppose if the BA specified some limit like 3 attempts or 5 attempts, then how the software should behave? That is my second doubt. Now what I have to do? I have to contact the BA and I have to get the doubts clarified. And finally, I have to take the sign off with BA. Thus, the requirement analysis process is completed. The second stage of the software development process is the design. The design mainly comprises of two levels. The first one is high level, the second one is low level. The high level design mainly talks about the architecture of the software. It talks about the methods, the classes and the objects which are to be implemented while developing the software. This will be very much useful for the developers, and this will help the developers to avoid any problems while developing the software. The high level design also talks about the architecture of the software, which includes the database, the balance routers and the host of the software. So you know what is database. So talking about host, it is the platform where the software is actually submitted. Suppose if you take Android application and you have developed one Android application, you will submit the Android application to the Google Play Store. Like that, if you develop some software for the desktop or a laptop, you have to submit to the host or the platform. Now coming to the balance routers. If you take Flipkart application, millions of the users will access the application at a time. So balance routers does is allowing the users to have some smooth browsing experience. If the balance routers does not work properly, they won't have smooth browsing experience. Coming to the low level design, it mainly deals with the features and modules which were specified in the requirement. The designers will prepare some prototypes for the UI part during the low level design. This is about designing. The third stage of development process is the building or development. In the development process, the developers will develop the presentation layer, the UI and the application layer using programming language and the database layer. Based upon the requirements, they will develop all these layers. Thus, the development process of the software will be completed. The fourth stage of development process is the testing or validation. Once the development is completed, the testers are going to test each and every feature and module of the application. If they found any defects, they will create the defects. Then the developers will fix those defects. Thus, the testing process will be completed. The fifth stage of development process is the deployment or release. Once the development is completed and the software is having no defects, now the developers will release the software into the environment where the real-time users are going to use the software. This is about release or deployment of the software. The final stage of software development process is the maintenance. Suppose Flipkart is having the payment options and it wants to add one new payment option, which is pay later option. What they will do? They have to update the software. They have to add a new feature to the software. This process is called maintenance. Suppose some defect is found, they have to fix the defect. That also comes under maintenance of the software. This is all about software development process. I hope you have understand each and every stage like requirement analysis, designing, development, testing, deployment, and the last is the maintenance. Thank you.